Good morning, everybody. This is Susan Wingfield from the BRS Secretariat. I'm a program officer working for the Secretariat, and one of my responsibilities is to facilitate the work of the Plastic Waste Partnership. Welcome to you all. I hope everybody is keeping well in wherever you may be around the world. Thank you very much for your patience. We thought it important to start a few minutes late just to allow those who have registered for the webinar to join us. There's been a great deal of interest in the pilot project program under the Basel Convention's Plastic Waste Partnership, and that's the main topic of discussion today. Now, before I go on, if at any time you have any issues hearing me, please do put a message in the chat box, and my colleague Dan will be able to help you with that, even maybe to stop me from talking if for some reason the audio drops out. So I will just continue. So as I mentioned, we are here today to talk about the Plastic Waste Partnership, but also the pilot project program for which a call for proposals was sent at the end of July. And there has been a great deal of interest already, as I mentioned, and it's very encouraging to see so many of you joining us today for this information session. At the end of the session, as Dan has advised, we will be having a Q&A. So please save your questions until that time. So I think it's quite important to give an overview of what the partnership is and its foundation. This is of great relevance to the pilot project program to understand the origins of the partnership and the work that it's done thus far since its establishment. So as many of you know, the partnership was established by the 14th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Basel Convention. This was in May last year. And it was actually part of a host of different actions that the parties took in relation to plastic waste. As I'm sure that everybody's aware, there's been a lot of concerns surrounding the issue of plastic waste, particularly in the marine environment in terms of marine litter and microplastics. And parties to the convention saw the need to take action within the Basel Convention Forum. They did so by adopting the plastic waste amendments. I'm not going to go into those today, but that was a very important step to improve the transparency of the trade or the transboundary movement of plastic waste. They also had a raft of other actions that they adopted, one of which is the Plastic Waste Partnership, and they essentially mandated this partnership to improve and promote the environmentally sound management of plastic waste. So it's quite a broad mandate. At the time, a work plan was adopted for the partnership for the current biennium, and members were invited to join. So membership is open to all parties and observers to the convention. Currently, we have 205 representatives representing 106 entities. When I say entities, I mean, for example, parties to the convention, non-parties, industry, NGO, academia, regional centres, and so forth. We're very lucky to have two very able co-chairs, Mr. Ole Thomas Thomassen from Norway and Mr. Ross Bartley from the Bureau of International Recycling. And I just want to give a shout out to our donors who have been very generous and supported the program of work of the partnership thus far. And you can see them listed there at the bottom of the screen. So a lot has gone on in terms of the partnership since its inception. It was officially launched last November in Geneva. We had quite a nice event sponsored by the City of Geneva. We had many different stakeholders join and discuss the issue of plastic waste. There's actually a video of the event on our website, and I encourage you to view that. Following that, there have been a series of online consultations of the partnership, and that culminated in a face-to-face meeting in Seychelles in March 2020, and this was literally right before the global lockdown due to the COVID pandemic. So we are lucky enough to have that face-to-face meeting. A lot was achieved at the meeting because it was the first meeting. There was a lot of discussion on how the partnership would work. Of course, it does have a terms of reference that was adopted by the Conference of the Parties, but there were further discussions to be had in relation to, for example, the admittance of members. So just to let you know, membership is still open, and there is a process in place for the working group to approve members who nominate. And also, they discussed a procedure for payment of annual subscriptions, which is necessary for certain stakeholders joining the partnership. They adopted their budget, which is quite a generous budget, deciding that pilot projects, the subject of today's discussion, would be one of the key areas for fundraising and towards which donor money would be channeled. They also established 4 project groups, which I'll get into in a moment, and agreed on the modalities for this pilot project program that we're discussing today. Now, on this slide, you can see the project groups under the partnership. So these were established at this March meeting. They're very important because they really give shape to how the work under the partnership is going to be carried out. Or you could say, what are the priority areas that the partnership will be focusing on? So as you can see, we have, kind of in line with the waste hierarchy, the first group being prevention and minimization, and the next looking at collection, recycling, and other recovery. Then, quite separately, is the issue of transboundary movements of plastic waste. And last, outreach, education, and awareness raising. And this last group really works in concert with the other 3 project groups to help them achieve their communication and outreach goals. Since the meeting, a lot of work has been ongoing, and very importantly, these project groups, through their co-chairs that were elected at the meeting in March, have been working on work plans. So taking those very broad project group subjects and activities that were agreed at the meeting, and really distilling that down into the different outputs that they would be working on over the next 2 years, essentially. What is important to note here is that these project groups aren't operating in silos. Of course, so much has been done on the issue of plastic waste already. They're reminded to keep an eye through the co-chairs and particularly through the members on other initiatives being undertaken within the Basel Convention, but of course, broadly across other organisations. They're required to work together, these project groups, and of course these work plans remain living documents that will be updated as work goes forth. Now I just have an example here of what one of the, this is project group 1 on prevention and minimization. This is what an excerpt of the work plan looks like. I don't want to get too bogged down in the details. All of these are available on the website, and I will be giving links to the relevant information later. But it's just to give you a sense that under each project group's work plan, there are certain activities that they've been mandated by the partnership to carry out. So, for example, for project group 1 on prevention and minimization, this group is mandated to look into collecting information, best practices, lessons learned, on measures taken to prevent and reduce plastic waste. And what they've done is they've said, okay, well, to start off with, we're going to look at producing these outputs. So, of course, first of all, we're going to compile information, then we're going to analyze it, and then later on, we'll develop work products on that basis. So that's just to give you an idea of what these work plans look like. And as I mentioned, this is just one of the activities for Project Group 1. So I've taken the time to go through the work plans of the project groups because they are of great relevance to the pilot project program. So for those wishing to submit pilot project proposals, there is a need to ensure that the proposals themselves contribute to the overall objectives of the partnership, which really shouldn't be too hard given the broad goal of the partnership, as already stated, is really prevention, minimisation and ESM of plastic waste. But also there should be effort to ensure that any proposal submitted can support the activities in the work plans of the project groups. So it may be the case that you have a proposal that you'll submit that touches on both prevention and minimisation, but also has an outreach aspect, and that's fine. Your proposal could be of relevance to more than one project group, but it's important that it is relevant to at least one. And I think that shouldn't be too difficult given that the project groups themselves have quite broad subject matter. The working group has gone and project groups have gone a step further to assist you in that they have per project group come up with a non-exhaustive list of examples of pilot project groups. So that can really, we encourage you to look at those. There's the hyperlink there, and that can really guide you as to what would be appropriate as a proposal for submission under this program. So now I'd like to run you through some of the details in terms of submitting pilot project proposals. So this is really the main subject matter of this webinar, but really, as I said, it's important to have the context of the partnership and its project groups before getting into this level of detail. So as many of you know, a call for proposals was sent out to all parties and observers, and this is actually across the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions, and also it was published on social media and various other outlets. And this was sent out on the 24th of July. Now, this means that the deadline for applications or submission of proposals will be 2 months from that date, which is the 24th of September. To give you an idea of the parameters associated with proposals to be submitted, we have the working group has decided that proposals should have an indicative budget between $50,000 and $80,000 US, and a time frame of between 12 to 18 months. Something important to note is that only one entity, so either the proponent or if the proponent is submitting a proposal on behalf of an implementing partner, only one entity can be identified per proposal. This isn't to say that partners can't be engaged, and indeed it's encouraged for you to bring in relevant partners, so from government or NGOs, private sector and so forth. And they would be project partners that you can identify in your proposal. But it's important to note that there is really just one entity associated with each proposal or submitting each proposal. Now, we also would like to encourage any in-kind or financial contributions, so co-funding. If you have it, great. That will certainly add support to the proposal that you will submit. Now, very important is the issue of eligibility. So the working group has been quite specific about who can submit pilot project proposals, and these entities are listed here. So, of course, parties to the Basel Convention, also non-party states, Basel and Stockholm Convention regional centres, and not-for-profit entities that have observer status under the convention. Now, we've had many questions actually since the call for proposals was issued About observer status, there is a link later in the presentation which explains how to apply for observer status under the convention. And it's a very simple process. But it is a step that needs to be taken before you can submit your pilot project proposal. Very importantly, projects are to benefit developing country parties or parties with economies in transition. So the projects really need to benefit or take place in these different countries. There may be further specifications. As you'll see, there's an asterisk there. Certain donors may prescribe more restrictions on who funding can be given to, but the Secretariat, together with the steering group, will manage that. So for now, we're saying, please, if you have a proposal that will benefit or take place in a developing country party or a party with an economy in transition, these are most welcome. Very importantly, and similar to many other funding mechanisms, your proposals will need to be accompanied by a letter of endorsement from the focal point of the party or parties in which the project is to be implemented. Now, you'll find on the Basel Convention website a list of focal points for each party. So that is information already gathered for you. So let's get a bit into the process. So where we are now is that the call for proposals for pilot projects was issued on the 24th of July, as mentioned. Now you, as proponents or implementing partners, are invited to submit your pilot project proposals by the 24th of September. In doing so, please ensure that your proposal has relevance to the partnership and to the project group work plans, that you meet the eligibility criteria, and that you use the correct documentation. So there is a proposal template, and this needs to be accompanied by the appropriate documents. For example, those endorsement letters I just mentioned, and also, for example, for non-profit entities, there's a requirement to complete a due diligence form. Now, just to move on to what happens from the 24th of September, I imagine we'll have quite a large number of proposals having been submitted. And this is where the steering group for pilot projects kicks into action. Now, this steering group really provides the overall guidance and oversight for the entire process of the pilot project submission, selection, implementation, and evaluation. The steering group is already comprised, it's already set. It is comprised of the co-chairs of the partnership, plus the co-chairs of each of these project groups, which I've already outlined. Something that is important to note is that the members of the partnership or members of the steering group are not prevented from submitting their own proposals under this program, but if they do so, they would be excluded from undertaking any selection or evaluation of the proposals. So that's important to note, that there wouldn't be any bias built into this process. Next, so what will happen on the 24th of September or leading up to that date, the Secretariat will receive all of these different proposals. We will screen them for eligibility and forward them to the steering group. Now, the steering group, in consultation with the different project groups, the relevant project groups really, will assess and rank all of the proposals received. Now, it's very transparent as to how these proposals are assessed and ranked because there's Appendix 2 of the modalities document. Again, the link is below. That really spells out the different criteria against which proposals are assessed. Very important to note that this essentially mirrors what is in the application template to begin with. So there's no secrets, it's a very transparent process. Next, once the steering group has completed its selection, what it will do, it will submit a list of selected, ranked and prioritised projects to the Secretariat. Now, it's important that they prioritise which projects they see as being of high priority, because, of course, the amount of funding available to fund the implementation of the project is limited. So the first priority projects will be taken as to be implemented first, using the resources currently available. Important to note that all of the selected projects will be put on the Basel Convention website. So it is possible that donors will view the list and decide to fund different projects according to their interests. So once this list is received, as I've mentioned, it will be placed on the website. Of course, we will advise the partnership and the proponents of the outcome of the selection process. Also important to note that those who have success, there may be a request from the steering group to make adjustments to the proposals, but of course this would not vastly change substantively the proposal, but certain adjustments may be required. It will then be for the Secretariat to conclude a legal instrument with the implementing partners of the pilot projects. So this is why it's very important that we just have one proponent or implementing partner identified. We will only enter into a legal agreement on which basis we transfer the money with one partner. And this is really for efficiency purposes. So moving on to implementation. Now, I should have explained this before, there is a lot of text here. I'm not going to go into detail, but just to let you know, you will receive this presentation after. So we just wanted to make sure that you had all the facts, but just to let you know that we will be monitoring the implementation of the projects. We anticipate that they will commence in early 2021. And essentially, once projects are finalised, so this is between that 12 to 18 month mark, the implementing partner will then submit the final deliverables of the project and the different reports as required under the pilot program. There will also be an evaluation undertaken for each of the pilot projects. So this is done on the basis of course, the deliverables submitted and the reports submitted. And it's all very transparent. As I said, there's already a template available in the modalities document that can give you an idea of the type of reporting that you'll have to do and on the basis of which the evaluation will be carried out. What's very important is, of course, these are pilot projects. We're hoping that these projects that have success can be replicated across the regions. We will be communicating the results of the pilots and reporting on this to our governing body meeting, the Conference of the Parties. We will also disseminate the results far and wide. The Secretariat will produce a fact sheet outlining the different outcomes, and this will be disseminated by not just the Secretariat, but also through the partnership network. So here, I won't go into this in detail, but we thought it would be useful for you to have a snapshot of the checklist that you need to go through prior to submission of your proposals. So this touches on the deadline, budget, eligibility, and so forth. Also, here are links to important reference documents. So we have an overview of the partnership itself. Very importantly, these project groups and their respective work plans. The call for proposals, which many of you will have already seen, with the modalities document, which I've referred to a number of times during this webinar, a template that you need to use for submission of your proposals, and frequently asked questions. There's also this list of examples of possible pilot project topics for you to view. Last but not least, many entities are contacting us at the moment that don't have observer status under the convention, and they will need to apply for that status prior to submitting their proposal. Now, this is a very simple process, but please understand that because we're getting so many requests right now, it may take a little bit longer than usual, but normally it's 2 to 3 weeks. But simply, if you click on this link that I've provided, it will explain to you about observer status under the convention, and there is a form for your entity to complete and submit. I do encourage you to continue preparation of your proposals whilst waiting for confirmation of observer status. And once that is granted, you can go ahead and submit your proposal. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to hand back over to Dan, who is going to guide us through the question and answer session. Thank you very much.